Part 2, back, of course, talking FF7. We're talking some Rebirth, of course. We're talking about Rebirth winning Best RPG at Thailand Game Show. Now, normally this isn't something we talk about. We don't really do, like, Game Awards show recap type shit or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Though we have talked about, of course, Rebirth, like, potentially winning Game of the Year. We've had that discussion a few times on the channel. We'll probably discuss that as well at some point in this video, but I did see a lot of people discussing this. I've seen it on, Twitter. I've seen it on Facebook groups of all things. Who the fuck goes on Facebook anymore? And I did see it on, like, multiple subreddits. The PS5 subreddit, the JRPG subreddit, and, of course, the remake subreddit. Clearly, people are happy and excited for Rebirth to be winning some sort of an award, of course. It did miss out on Game of the Year at Thailand Game Show, but to be fair, kind of everything lost to Black Myth Wukong. It won most categories. Really, the only categories that Black Myth Wukong didn't win are the ones that it couldn't possibly win because it couldn't be nominated. Stuff like, Best Sports Game or Best Mobile Game. Would have been funny as fuck if it won Best Sports Game, though. It kind of makes you have to question how legitimate to look at any of these awards just because this is a Southeast Asian game exhibition that has an award show. And obviously Black Myth Wukong is going to be very popular there. It's like the first, major like AAA game to kind of come out of that region, right? With like Chinese mythology, like intertwined and a Chinese developer and stuff. So it's obviously going to sweep a lot of the categories. And that's not to take away anything from the developers or the game itself. It's probably a good game. I've never played it. It's not my sort of thing. And it's not unheard of to see like a game sweep a lot of categories depending on how popular it is. We've seen it with like The Last of Us Part 2 a handful of years ago when that game came out, of course. It won a fuck ton of awards. So it does happen, but it's like, if this was in a different region, we'll see like later this year with like the Game Awards, right? Like, it'll be very interesting to see how many categories it gets nominated for, but also how many it wins. And to be honest, Rebirth only won Best RPG because Black Myth Wukong wasn't one of the nominees. It probably would have won that too if it was. Honestly, it's pretty weird they didn't put it there because it probably qualifies. It's an action RPG just like Rebirth is, right? I'd imagine Rebirth probably has more RPG elements, but you could go back and forth on what qualifies as an actual RPG. And if you look at the Wikipedia for both games, they actually have the exact same categories. In fact, Black Myth Wukong has at least one more in terms of like game genres. They also seem to have some sort of weird limit of like 3 nominees per category, at least for the ones that I checked, which was, Best Game of the Year in RPG. I don't know if that like factors into what was or wasn't nominated per category. Maybe that's why Black Myth Wukong wasn't in the RPG category. Maybe they wanted the other 2 games to be there alongside Rebirth. And to be fair to, the Game of the Year category and to Rebirth, they did nominate it. It just, there's no way it was going to win. Also looking into like the categories and the nominees and stuff, you had like the best ongoing game was Genshin Impact, the best mobile game was Zenless Zone Zero, and the best like game publisher was Hoyoverse. And those are like all connected. They're all like Chinese or like Asian developers or companies or games or whatever the fuck. And like Zenless Zone Zero was also nominated for Game of the Year alongside Black Myth Wukong and also Rebirth, of course. So it's like, and look, I'm not like the most in touch with modern gaming, as a lot of you guys know. I don't play a ton of the games that come out, but I've literally never fucking heard of Zenless Zone Zero. So I don't know if this is like it is like Thailand Game Show. Maybe it's like specifically Asian games and like developers and publishers and shit. Maybe that's the point of the award show. I don't know, but I've literally never heard of the game, so I don't know how it possibly qualifies for Game of the Year. So whenever Rebirth won the Best RPG category, they had somebody come up on stage to get the award, and I didn't recognize the person. I don't know who this guy is at all. I initially thought it was Katase just because somewhat similar hairstyle. I'd seen a quick little snippet on Twitter. I didn't even full screen it. It's Twitter, so the video quality was a complete asshole. So I don't know who this is, but it seems like, the devs weren't looking to this event that much. Maybe they seen like the fucking nominees in the categories and they're like, there's no goddamn way we're winning. Maybe it's a surprise to them that they won, but they sent some like intern to grab the award. Kind of the whole point of this video here, this discussion we've had so far is, I don't know how relevant this event is, at least to the overall gaming community, right? It does seem like there's either it's catered to a particular audience because it is Thailand Game Show, or it's a very like biased event in some ways, if that makes any sense. At this point, we probably talked about this subject longer than we needed to. I just don't think this event necessarily matters. I mean, it's cool that Rebirth was nominated for some categories. It won a particular award. I'm not going to say no to the game getting awards, I guess. But it's like, I don't know. Like, who gives a shit? Black Myth Wukong sweeping the whole event. It's like, come on, it's not going to happen anywhere else realistically. Like, let's get to the Game Awards at the end of the year. I'm sure Black Myth Wukong will be nominated for some categories. It could potentially win some categories. It was a very popular, successful game, right? You don't really hear about it too much these days anymore, but it was still very, like, successful. Let's see what actually happens at the Game Awards. Obviously, there can be like some biases at other gaming events, gaming award events, whatever the fuck. And obviously, if Hideo Kojima's in any categories and it's run by Jeff Keighley, he's going to be winning some. Keighley could have his way. Death Stranding 2 would be winning Game of the Year this year. And probably next year, too. Joking aside, though, I think most people look to the Game Awards as, like, kind of the event, right? Where, like, the awards kind of matter, if that makes any sense. And I think it's, like, the best one in a way just because it's at the end of the year. It takes place in December. That gives, the whole year for, games to come out and be potential nominees. I don't know if there's, like, a cutoff for exactly when things can qualify for categories, but I just think, given the placement of the event at the end of the year, it makes the most sense. Also, if you look at the award categories and the nominees at the Game Awards, it's more stacked versus, the Thailand Game Show just had 3 per category, it would seem. You'll have, like, 5 or more. Like, Game of the Year will definitely be, like, 5 to, like, 7 or maybe more, depending. Because you're definitely going to have Rebirth there, Black Myth Wukong, Astrobots. You'll definitely have Metaphor Refantazio, and probably, you know, maybe Helldivers 2, and then beyond that, I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head. Maybe Silent Hill 2 Remake, that's pretty popular right now. As for whether or not I think Rebirth will win Game of the Year at Game Awards, we've talked about this before in the past, and I've said that I didn't think it had a lot of competition, and that's changed a bit as time's gone on now. For one, when we talked about it before, you guys let me know that before Black Myth Wukong was coming out, that it was going to be a Game of the Year contender. That's obviously true, even though I've kind of like went against it in this video a little bit with the Thailand Game Show stuff. It's sold like 10 million copies or more in like 3 days, which is like, that does not happen very often. Dude. There's very few games that are hitting double-digit millions of sales. That's insanity to think about. So it's definitely going to be a contender. And besides that, like, Astrobot is very popular. I don't personally think it should win. I'm not saying it's a bad game at all or whatever. It's a pretty fun game from what everybody says, but I just don't think it should be a Game of the Year winner, if that makes any sense. I'm fine with it being nominated, whatever. Then you also have very recently Metaphor Refantazio that just came out not too long ago, and that game is doing really, really well. A lot of people, you know, it's one of their favorite games from Atlas. I think it's like Atlas's fastest selling game ever, which is kind of crazy to think about because they have a pretty prestigious library of like RPGs and stuff, right? So like that's a game that's probably going to be a nominee. I don't know if it'll win or not. You guys can let me know what you think on that. As of right now, I still think like Rebirth has very, very good odds. I think it's really only competing with maybe like Black Myth Wukong and maybe Metaphor. I don't think Astrobot will win, even if it'll be nominated. And then if Helldivers 2 is the 5th nomination, then I don't think that's going to win either, obviously. So I think it's really only like a 2 or 3 horse race here right now. I don't know. Really, you guys can let me know, because a lot of you play more games than I do. I'm sure a lot of you out there have played like a lot of the Game of the Year contender games. And really, we can just kind of wait till see what like the nominees are. Once we get like the nominees at some point for the Game of the Year awards, whatever, for the Game Awards show, we can kind of like assess the situation from there. Speaking of awards show, though, we do have the Golden Joystick Awards coming up in November, and voting's been open for a while now. I've just been waiting for the opportunity to mention it in a video, because Rebirth is a nominee for like 5 different categories, and you can still vote until November 1st, so there's still a lot of time. Rebirth is actually tied with Astrobot for the most nominations for the Golden Joystick Awards at 5, and I believe it's like storytelling, soundtrack, console game of the year, and then best like leading performer with Cody Christian as Cody Strife, apparently, Cloud Strife, and of course like best supporting actor, actress, whatever, with Brianna White as Aerith. I haven't opened up the nominees or the voting for the Game of the Year yet. That's going to be open at a later point. We'll probably mention that in a video because I'm sure Rebirth will qualify for that if you want to vote for it. We'll see what the competition is there too, and how like Rebirth performs at the Golden Joystick Awards. Maybe get an idea of how the Game Awards might go. Plus, Rebirth is going to qualify for other categories of the Game Awards, like Best Soundtrack, if they have the Best Console Game, if they have Best RPG, things like that. Rebirth will be there, and it just kind of depends on what other nominees there are. That's really kind of it for the video, though. I mean, we talked about a couple different awards shows in one video. Instead of making multiple videos about this shit, we just do fucking Thailand Game Show, Game Awards discussion, and also Golden Joystick Awards all in one video. Get it the fuck out of the way, because this is not something we talk about very often. We try to mention whenever like voting opens up with Golden Joystick Awards for Game of the Year, just to kind of like throw some like help Rebirth's way if I can, in a little pocket of the YouTube world. Take an easy outro, though. We have the Game Awards coming up not too long. We're more than halfway through the month of October. What do you think right now is Game of the Year? That's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. There's no works in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @DavidYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.